Hello everybody, and welcome to the next instalment of the motorcycling journey around Launceston. In the last video I think we say I misspoke. I said that I was on Penquite Road, and in actual fact I was coming off the Kingsmeadow link onto Quarantine Road. And so to follow this ride, I went Quarantine Road, which then becomes Johnston Road, and then onto St Leonard's Road, then Ravenswood Road, Wildor Crescent, Vermont Road, until where Vermont Road joins Invermay Road at the Mowbray Pub, and then I went in the general direction of Newnham and Allenvale, so the northeastern suburbs. So hopefully as you're watching the video you can follow where I'm going, and you can work out which roads I'm going on and so on, and that's all clarified. So I apologise to anyone who was confused about where I was in the last ride. Also in this ride I did a bit of editing, because at one stage I had to pull off the road for a moment. The sun was quite bright in my eyes, as you can see even here at the beginning, and I knew that my helmet had a flip down sun visor, tinted shade, but I just couldn't work out how to flip it down, so I had to pull off the road and take off the helmet and work that out. So I edited out that bit because it's just boring with the bike stuck on the side of the road. And also as I came up to the Vermont Road, Invermay Road intersection, I was stuck behind a truck at the traffic lights there for something like 2.5 minutes. So I just edited all that out, because nothing worse than watching the back of a truck and just sitting there doing nothing. So all of that was edited out. So this video is slightly shorter, and you're wondering, well, what happened to the truck and so on? Well, that's what happened. Okay, so what to talk about? Well, I thought today, for something different, I would talk about awards. And in particular, I'm going to talk initially about awards in the motor industry. And although that's not directly related to motorcycling, it just was something that I have been thinking about for a while, and thought I would make some comments on. I follow and subscribe to a channel that's called on YouTube, that's called Auto Expert, that's run by a bloke called John Cadogan, Cadogon, I think, Cadogan. And he's a motoring writer who claims to have worked in the media for a long time in print, radio and television. I have no reason to doubt that that's the case, but I'm saying he claims it and I'm just relaying what he said. He at one stage wrote for Wheels magazine and has written for other motoring magazines, and has written car reviews for newspapers and websites and so on. Has been a presenter of radio programs and been a guest on radio programs talking about issues related to motoring, and has been worked for Channel 7 in Sydney, covering issues to do with the motor industry. Now he runs this website that's called Auto Expert, and he makes comments about the motoring industry. In particular, he follows sales in the motor industry. He talks about brands that he'd recommend you buy and brands he recommends you don't buy. I'm not going to go into that. I'm going to get to the point of my story in a moment. And in particular, he focuses on things like after-sales service and customer service from the big brands. But recently he was talking about the Car of the Year award, Bocotti as he calls it, because I think the B stands for Best Car of the Year. Now, you would know, if you're a bit of a motoring enthusiast, that there are categories for the Car of the Award. There might be the best hatchback, the best small city car, the best medium price car, the best luxury car, and so on. But then there's the best overall car. So out of all of the categories, there is one, and all of the cars that are available on the Australian market, there is one car that is awarded this Best Car of the Year award. It's an award that's made by Wheels magazine, which is a magazine that obviously writes about motoring. They used to have a sister publication called Two Wheels, which is about motorcycling. I'm not sure if that's still in publication or not. I did used to read it when I was much younger, but I don't do so now. Anyway, Mr. Cadogan, who used to work for and write for Wheels magazine at one stage, has become quite critical of the standard of journalism, or he uses that term loosely, and I'm just relaying his thoughts here and how I understood what he talked about the other day. The standard of journalism and writing that is offered in Wheels magazine in particular, and he feels that for the most part the people who write for that magazine tend to do so to appease the advertisers and the sponsors, and to make sure they get invited to the next press junket or the next launch of a new model and get the new car to test and so on, rather than to necessarily write about the vehicle in a way that informs the buying public of what the car is like, what the after-sales service is like, what the warranty is like, and so on. Now, in any case, whenever you write about a new car, you've got a brand new car, and with warranties these days being 5 and 7 years, you can be assured, I would assume, that for at least the first 3 or 4 years, there's not going to be much go wrong with the car, and if it is, it's covered by warranty unless you're in a smash. So when the motoring writer, whether they write for Wheels magazine or any other magazine or motoring site, gets a car, you would assume it's in pristine condition and it's been workshop checked and so on, and they're going to drive it out of the workshop and they're going to have their talks about it and write about it and find foibles with it. They don't like the suspension, or the steering's too tight or too loose or whatever. But overall, the car's going to be pretty good for the first 3 or 4 years. It's when you put 45, 50,000 kilometres on it, and when the warranty is starting to run out, and when you're thinking about selling it or trading it for something else, that when you want to know is, well, what is the parts supply like, and so on. But in any case, he was focusing his attention this time on the car of the year, and the best car of the year. Now, he stated at one stage that the Federation of Australian Automotive Vehicle Industry, or whatever it's called now, the lobby body that is in charge of motor vehicle lobbying in Australia, bearing in mind that we don't make any cars in Australia, says there's something like 63 different models. And I forget how many brands, but we have one of the most diverse markets in terms of how many models there are, how many brands there are to choose from, and how many cars there are to choose from, bearing in mind that at the very best of times we sell about 1.2 million new cars a year. So we have a pretty good choice. But you would think if you were giving out an award for the car of the year, that there would be some criteria. For example, technology, function, style, affordability, all those sorts of measures. But the one big measure that you would want to have, I would think, would be that if you were going to say this car that we're about to give this gong to is the best car available on the Australian market this year, after we've weighed up all the models that are available and we've test driven them and we've got all our judges to look at them and we've got the ladies to look at the palette and we've looked at how many cup holders there are and all that sort of stuff, would be a car that was for sale in the Australian market. Now, Wheels magazine this year decided to award the best car of the year on the Australian market to the Kia EV6. And they say this is the flagship of the brand and the best car of the year. Obviously, people who buy that magazine, and even people who only look at the cover and maybe hear, well, this is the best car of the year, if they're thinking about buying a new car, are going to go to the Kia dealers and say, I'm interested in a new car and I'd like to look at an EV6. And the dealer's going to say to them, well, I'm sorry, you can't look at it because it's not for sale in Australia. I want you to let that sink in for a moment. This car has been awarded the best car of the year on the Australian market, but you cannot buy one in Australia. And if you think, well, okay, that's just that dealer being hard to get along with, or he can't get stock because he's fallen out of favour with Kia or whatever, and you go to another dealer, you'll find the same thing. And in fact, if you go to the Kia website, they will say to you, this is all according to Mr. Cadogan, if you go to the Kia website, they will ask you to register your email contact details, and they will update you on availability of this car. Now, of course, Kia are giving you the usual story about chip shortages and supply chain constrictions and so on and so forth that we've been hearing since the beginning of COVID, and no doubt some of those things are true. But a car that is even being considered for Australian Car of the Year ought to be available to be bought in Australia. Now, Kia are at fault for allowing this car to be considered, you would think, but Wheels magazine are more at fault because they know that they're offering a prize, which at some sort of black tie affair with everybody gathered around at some swanky place with their evening dress on, and photographs are being taken, and motoring executives and dealers are shaking hands and glad handing everybody and so on. They know that the average bloke who wants to buy this car cannot buy one because they're not for sale in Australia. Now that is, to me, worse than when you see advertising for cars in Australia, on the Australian market, and the fine print underneath the flashy ad says overseas model shown. That irritates me because I want to go and buy, or I want to look at the car that is available in Australia. I don't want to look at a car with the steering wheel on the other side or with features that are not offered in Australia. But in this case, this car's not even available in Australia. Now, if this were Tesla, you would say, well, that's fair enough. Tesla don't have a long history of making cars. They've been doing it for about 10 years or so. They're meant to be exclusive cars. The cheapest one's about 80 grand and the dearest one's 250 grand or something like that. The general deal with Tesla is you whack down a deposit, 3, 4, 5, 6 grand, depending on which car it is you're wanting to buy. You wait till the car becomes available. They send you an email saying your car is available 6 months, 9 months, 12 months after you pay the deposit, and then eventually will get delivered to you. This is Kia, who along with Hyundai, because they're both the same company, Hyundai owns Kia, but Kia and Hyundai, along with probably Toyota and Volkswagen, must be the 3 biggest car manufacturers in the world. This company is making cars by the thousands every day. They start at one end of a production line with an empty shell, and at the end of the day, there's a car driven off the production lot onto a shipping container or onto a ship somewhere to be exported, to be sold. So if they cannot get their production right to the stage where this is a car that's being considered or is being awarded the best car on the Australian market, but you can't buy one, then what's the point of the award? Now that led me to thinking about other awards that are given out to people, and in particular awards in the entertainment industry. I want you to think about it for a moment. I know there are people who do put a lot of store in these things, but in the entertainment industry we have the Academy Awards, we have the Golden Globes, we have the Screen Actors Guild Awards, we have the Tonys, we have the BAFTAs, we have the Daytime Emmys, the Primetime Emmys, then we have the Video Music Awards, the American Music Awards, the Grammy Awards. In Australia, we have the ARIAs and the Logies and I think they're the Helpmans for stage actors and so on. We have this plethora of awards. It seems to me that acting is the only industry, or the entertainment industry is the only industry where there are so many awards for people being given, that people are given for simply doing their job. Think about that for a moment. Teachers don't get awarded by their union for doing their job. The Screen Actors Guild, for example, the SAG Awards as they're called, the Screen Actors Guild is the actors' union in America, and they give out awards to people for doing their job. The Plumbers Union doesn't give awards to people for doing their job. The Electricians Union doesn't give awards to people for doing, and as I said, the Teachers Union doesn't give awards for people doing their job. And it seems to me that there are so many of these awards now that they tend to be rather meaningless. Everybody collects a gong. Somebody says a few words about something, and the rest of the audience claps. The only person who cares is the person who got the award, or the person who thought they should have got it but didn't, and the gossip columnists and celebrity journalists and so on that write about this kind of stuff. I don't suspect that most other people care very much about